In the 1700s, we can say that India was the center of the world. It made up almost a quarter of the global economy all by itself. Gold, silk, spices. People from all over the world came for this wealth. At that time, Bengal was richer than all of Britain. But when independence came in 1947, India's share of the world economy had fallen below 4%. This loss didn't happen naturally. It was taken slowly, deliberately, and systematically. And it wasn't done through war alone. They used ledgers, taxes, and trade laws. Welcome to the Financial Historian, where money, power, and history blend together, and nothing is ever as simple as it looks. For 2 centuries, the British Empire built such an exploitation system that there's hardly anything like it in human history. They didn't just rule India, they turned it into a money machine. A civilization that once sold luxury goods to Rome, Arabia, and China was turned into a cheap raw material supplier for British industry. And this was done not with guns, but with something much quieter and far more effective: accounting. This is not a story of nationalism or revenge. This is quite literally mathematics. How does a country go from being one of the richest in the world to one of the poorest? The answer, not through war, but through financial design. In the 1600s, India was under the Mughal Empire's rule. About 150 million people, a quarter of the world's population at the time. The land was fertile, ports were busy, and trade was strong. Indian textiles were so valuable that European merchants traveled for months just to buy a few bolts of cloth. Gold and silver were flowing into the country. And then England entered the game, a small but ambitious nation. And they brought along something extremely powerful: the idea of a joint stock company. In 1600, Queen Elizabeth founded the East India Company. It wasn't a state, but eventually it would become stronger than many states. It had shareholders, a board of directors, and eventually its own army. At first, they were merchants like everyone else. But they had a different goal: monopoly. They were incredibly skilled at using finance, insured ships, bond-backed investments, London's credit networks. Soon they realized something. The real money wasn't in trade, it was in taxes. And in 1757, everything changed. The Battle of Plassey was just a small skirmish, but its impact was huge. The company seized control of Bengal and took for itself the right to collect taxes. This is how corporate colonialism was born. Within a decade, unbelievable amounts of money began flowing out of Bengal. But this wealth didn't make Bengal prosper. It destroyed it. Famine, inflation, collapsing production. London grew richer while Calcutta grew poorer. The company expanded and expanded. It printed its own money, formed its own army, and established its own courts. Its agents in India forced locals into labor and destroyed local industries. It wasn't plunder. It was a systematic transfer of wealth. In 1770, a great famine struck Bengal. Around 10 million people died, yet even then, the company made more money. Grain exports continued. Taxes didn't fall. For investors in London, it was a good year. Economists defended this system as civilization. Under the name of modernization, they brought railways, schools, and legal systems. But all of them served the machinery of exploitation. Railways weren't built to connect people. They were built to connect cotton fields to ports. Schools existed to produce clerks. Courts weren't for justice. They were for debt and obedience. While India's famous textile cities collapsed, British cities like Manchester and Liverpool rose using Indian resources. While Indian looms fell silent, English factories ran day and night. This system became known as the drain of wealth. The vast fortune extracted from India financed Britain's industrialization, worth about $45 trillion in today's money. And the worst part, even in famine years, India kept exporting grain to Britain. People were dying of hunger, yet exports didn't stop, because export revenue was considered more valuable than human life. The most insidious part of the system was this: the British Empire was sustained using India's own money. Wars, bureaucrat salaries, infrastructure debts. Most were paid with Indian revenues. It was as if India wasn't a colony, but the empire's central bank. Even the railways were financed in a way that pushed the risks onto India and guaranteed profits for the British. Even when the East India Company disappeared, its logic survived. The new names were credit, debt, and financial dependency. When independence came, India inherited not only a devastated economy, but also a cycle of debt that lasted for years. Education was low, industry was broken. Today, this system still exists, but under new names: structural adjustment, debt dependency. Wealth still flows from poorer